Welcome back to Trading the Market, and in today's video we're talking TradeSense. A lot of people get into football trading think the difficult part is finding strategies. They spend years jumping from system to system, trying to find different entry methods, different staking plans, different markets, different filters, consistently searching for that thing that finally works. But in reality, one of the biggest differences between profitable traders and struggling traders usually comes down to something much simpler: consistency of decision making. See, most people do not apply the same thought process consistently enough across football matches. One day they trust the data, the next day they ignore it because they have a feeling. One losing trade changes how they profile the next game. One big winner suddenly makes them overconfident. Emotion starts influencing the process, and over time that destroys structure completely. That's really where TradeSense came from. When I manually analyse football, I'm not looking at one stat and making a decision. It's never that simple. Every fixture is made up of layers. Teams can have strong scoring rates and weak first half profiles. A side can look dominant overall but become unreliable against certain opponents' profiles. Some teams create chaos, some control games. Some start aggressively but fade badly late on. Some leagues naturally suit certain markets while others consistently produce false signals. Everything interacts with everything else. One statistic changes the meaning of another statistic. One trend completely overrides what looks obvious on the surface, and a lot of football trading systems fail because they oversimplify the game too much. They try to reduce football into one or two conditions and assume that's enough, but football doesn't really work like that. TradeSense follows a very complex and intertwining decision tree that looks at over 150 separate data points during the profiling process. It's consistently weighing information against other information, filtering out contradictions, identifying patterns, and deciding whether a fixture actually supports a trade. And importantly, sometimes the conclusion is that there is no trade. That part matters more than people realise. One of the biggest mistakes traders make is believing they always need to action. They convince themselves that every match must contain an opportunity somewhere, but professional profiling is often about elimination, removing bad fixtures, avoiding unstable setups, understanding when the data does not align strongly enough. TradeSense does that automatically. Every football fixture with enough playable data is analysed, but the algorithm is perfectly capable of deciding that no trade should be advised at all. That's intentional. We never wanted this to become one of those tools that forces selections purely for the sake of activity. The goal was always to replicate realistic decision making. And because the process is automated, it means the same profiling structure is applied repeatedly across thousands of fixtures without fatigue, emotion, or inconsistency creeping in. To give you the idea of the scale involved, in April alone TradeSense advised 2,149 trades across all football. That's thousands of individual profiling decisions being made consistently in the background. Now, obviously no system wins every trade. Football does not work like that. Anyone pretending otherwise is either lying or cherry picking results. Variance exists, losing runs exist, bad days happen, weird football results happen constantly. But what matters in trading is long-term consistency and understanding whether your edge actually holds over a large sample size. That's why we have introduced the tracker. I wanted people to stop relying on screenshots, social media claims, isolated winning days, or selective memory. Anyone can post a green screen after a good night, anyone can disappear after a bad week. That's the reality of online trading spaces. The tracker changes that completely. Every single day, users can go into the results tracker and review the advised trades for the day before and how they performed. You can view daily performance, monthly performance, strike rates, trade types, and begin seeing long-term patterns emerge over time. And honestly, I think this part is incredibly important from an educational perspective, because once you start seeing larger data samples, your understanding of trading changes completely. You stop obsessing over individual results, you stop panicking over losing days, you stop treating every winner like a proof of a genius. Instead, you begin to understand football trading properly as a probability game built around long-term edges. You start seeing how certain markets naturally behave, you start recognising which trade types are more volatile, which ones produce smoother strike rates, which setups rely heavily on late goals, which profiles generate stronger consistency, which leagues behave differently. And over time that understanding becomes incredibly valuable. Free users can access the overall trade types and strike rates, which already gives a really good overview of how TradeSense is performing. You can still study the numbers, review the market performance, and see the overall outcomes. Pro members get the full detailed breakdown behind everything. That includes the actual fixtures, the advised trades, the half-time, full-time outcomes, and the complete day-by-day analysis behind the headline strike rates. And honestly, that deeper level is where people really start understanding how powerful a proper tracking tool actually is. Because when you can review thousands of trades over time, patterns begin to appear that you would never normally notice manually. You start identifying which trades profiles are genuinely stable, you start seeing where the market behaviour changes, you start spotting where public perception differs from actual long-term performance, and that's where real improvement starts happening. Not from blindly following picks, not from chasing hype, and not from copying random screenshots online, but from understanding football markets properly through the data and long-term observation. I also think that the timing of this release matters quite a lot. Every year when the winter leagues start ending, loads of traders suddenly feel lost because they assume the opportunities disappear during the summer months, but modern football barely stops anymore. There are fixtures consistently being played all over the world every single day, and because TradeSense profiles football automatically at scale, there are still huge numbers of trades being analysed and advised consistently throughout the summer period. That's a massive advantage. Instead of manually searching through fixtures hoping to stumble across opportunities, the profiling has already been done for you consistently in the background, and the reality is most people massively underestimate how difficult that level of analysis becomes once you have to apply it consistently across thousands of games. Doing it manually for one or two fixtures is one thing, doing it accurately across global football every single day is something completely different. That's why TradeSense took so long to build properly, because we didn't want a simplistic if that stat then place this trade type of tool. We wanted something that actually reflected layered football profiling and realistic decision making, something capable of understanding context, something capable of filtering out weak setup, something capable of saying no trade, something capable of replicating structured football analysts consistently. And honestly, I think that's what separates Sports IQ from a lot of the other platforms. The goal has always been to build tools that help people think better, analyse better, and make more logical decisions over the long term and save you time. Because time is your most valuable asset, and you can't be wasting it on trying to learn how to use a platform that is overcomplicated for no reason, other than to seem like it's doing more. The true brilliance of anything is making something complex into something simple. And TradeSense is probably one of the clearest examples of that philosophy so far, because at its core it isn't really about blindly following trades, it's about understanding what structured profiling actually looks like when applied and consistently across massive amounts of data over long periods of time. And honestly, this is only the beginning of where I want to take this, because the more data that goes through the system, the more interesting the long-term profiling becomes. You start building larger samples, stronger patterns, better understanding of market behaviour, and much clearer picture of what actually holds up over time versus simply what looks good in short bursts. That's really the entire purpose of the tracker: transparency, long-term analysis, real data, real results, and a proper way to study football trading without relying on hype or selective screenshots. I also think one of the most important parts of it is accessibility. Not everyone has the time to manually profile hundreds of fixtures every single week. Most people simply can't physically process that amount of football consistently. TradeSense allows that profiling process to happen automatically in the background while keeping the logical and structure behind proper decision making. And whether you use it for ideas, research, learning, trade selection, or simply understanding how different football markets behave over time, the amount of information inside that tracker is honestly massive once you start digging into it properly. So if you just want to start looking at football trading in a more structured, analytical way, instead of just jumping from strategy to strategy every few weeks, then I genuinely think this is one of the most useful tools released on Sports IQ so far. The TradeSense Tracker is now officially live. Enjoy. I've been Mark, this has been TradeSense that makes trade sense, and until next time, happy trading.